Welcome to Amplifying Recruitment. In this episode, I'm joined by Sean White from Omnia. We're about to see one of the biggest legislation changes that affects the way that agencies engage with umbrella companies. In this episode, Sean's going to break down exactly what you need to know about that change. Sean, welcome to Amplifying Recruitment.
No worries, thanks for having me.
For anyone that doesn't know you, could you do like a 30-second intro to you?
Yeah, so obviously my name's Sean White, so I'm the Managing Director at Omnia Outsourcing. So Omnia is, in simple forms, a payroll business, so we predominantly supply into the recruitment sector, and a lot within construction as well. So my, journey very, very quickly has kind of come through recruitment and then into the payroll world for, I think, the last 15 years, maybe.
What recruitment were you doing before you got into payroll?
So literally I was out of school into recruitment, so I did the real kind of hard graft part of it, so it's industrial recruitment. So
oh, right, okay.
I think my first job was literally recruiting for a salad factory in Yorkshire. So literally get a call at 2 p.m. on any given day, and depending on the weather, stuff like that, would need 10 people in a salad factory that was like an hour away, or 200 people. So, and the shift I think started from like 5 o'clock, so you had that kind of a mad 3 hours to scramble a lot of people around. So yeah, industrial, and then into a bit more kind of commercial, secretarial, a lot of call centre stuff at the time before moved out of recruitment and into the payroll world.
What took you from recruitment into payroll? What was the... I've seen that move happen loads, right? Like being a recruiter, having to deal with an umbrella, and then eventually making that move. Yeah, well,
I guess the kind of weird thing, I'd never dealt with an umbrella company when I was working in recruitment. So, the majority of my time was spent at Randstad, doing the call centre stuff. So it was all pay as you earn. I've seen in-house payroll team within Randstad. So I didn't know what an umbrella company was at the time, because obviously when you work in a big corporate like Randstad, then kind of a lot of stuff's done for you. But the main reason that I did it is because, and recruiters will probably feel this pain, and they'll not mean to explain, is obviously you do your job and you get the guys and then they let you down, and it used to drive me mad, to be fair. So I had the opportunity to come up that was purely a sales job at the time, but yeah, little did I know that it was kind of supplying back into recruitment, and that it'd kind of take me, I guess, where it has in the time since.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I just sort of laughed internally there that you said, I was at Randstad and everything was done for me. I didn't know what an umbrella was. I worked for Randstad, but I worked for Randstad CPE construction, so we dealt with loads of umbrellas. Yeah. And I was very aware that if you did the right things, you got a nice little brown envelope at the end of the month, which obviously doesn't happen anymore. But this was many, many moons ago.
Yeah.
So on the topic of umbrella companies, there's obviously been lots of changes that happened over the years. No more brown envelopes, but there's obviously like a big change coming in really soon. Would you explain what's happening to me as if I'm like a 5-year-old?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously you mentioned kind of a bit tongue-in-cheek about brown envelopes. So look, I think our sector, and when I say our sector, I include kind of umbrella and the recruitment sector within that, because they kind of dovetail so much that there has been a lot of non-compliance, and that weirdly is probably kind of the low-hanging fruit element. That doesn't necessarily, certainly doesn't harm HMRC or the Exchequer and stuff like that. But there's certainly been schemes and various different methods where obviously people have looked to manipulate the tax system for financial benefit. I think it's no more complicated than that at times, and I've been in and around some of that and stuff in the past and seen it firsthand and stuff as well. But it obviously creates a massively unlevel playing field. I mean, if you've done recruitment yourself, or anybody that's listening and watching has, then everybody will probably have experienced whereby you pitching for a piece of work and the client comes back and said agency A can do this rate and undercut you, and the chances are either they're looking to make very little to no money, or they're using some kind of payroll scheme that allows them or enables them to make their profit and their margin through a different way. And this has been kind of probably a bit of a consistent battle for, as long as I've been in and around payroll, to be fair. And HMRC have, some would say, probably finally kind of taken a little bit of action with it, really. So as of today, if a payroll company is doing something that they shouldn't be doing, or I guess I know you had Simon Block on and he kind of explained it to a level as well. where if the tax liability isn't paid over or it's incorrectly calculated, then at the moment that kind of liability sits with the payroll company. But I guess the issue that then creates, if the payroll company is not doing something correctly, then they're probably not too fussed about longevity. So if they do get found out, then they just disappear and go off into the sunset, or they might be based anywhere around the world, to be fair. So it's very difficult for revenue to kind of recoup that money back. And as you can probably imagine, those bills can rack up into hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions in certain cases. So what revenue, or what HMRC are going to do is they're going to make the agency and or the end client joint and several liable for that debt. So effectively a little bit like some of the off-payroll stuff that people are probably aware of that came in around limited companies a couple of years ago. Really making people further up supply chain sit up and take notice, because if that payroll company does fail or it doesn't do what they should be doing, the agency just going, well, it wasn't us and we didn't know, or whatever it might be, is not going to wash come April, and they're going to be on the hook for that debt.
And there'll be some people listening to this that maybe weren't around the industry when this was happening, but I saw this firsthand, where we'd have a payroll company that was based typically on the Isle of Man or Guernsey or Jersey, and they just weren't paying the national insurance. They said they were paying on behalf of the candidate.
Yep.
And then one day they'd just close the doors with £1 million worth of unpaid national insurance. And like you said, as the agency, you go, well, it wasn't me, it was ABC Umbrella.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, it's twofold. Obviously, the worker then is potentially and most likely out of pocket as well, because for all intents and purposes, they're having paid you and deducted from their wages every week. And as you'll know, that gets paid over to HMRC, and if you work for a good employee, you never have to worry about that. But if you're working for an unscrupulous one, then you do have to worry about that, because that money's not getting paid over and you still owe it. So obviously it hits the contractor. And also there's, I guess, other elements whereby some of these schemes are clearly tax avoidance as well, and that impacts contractors at that level too. But yeah, and then the agencies, like I say, they're going to get the big bills, because if, obviously some agencies have tens of thousands of people out, and if they're on the hook for that, then these bills are going to be massive. So it's definitely something that people need to be paying some serious attention to.
And who is it that's doing this? Is it and I think it's a positive thing. When I said that, it sounded like it was a bad thing, but it's who is it that's doing it? Is it HMRC? Is this like a Labour government thing?
It would be the short answer, in terms of, obviously it's a Labour government that have implemented it. But there's been, as there tends to be with these things, there's been chat and consultations for Conservatives and obviously Labour government as well. So the Tories kind of set the path down this road, and then obviously when Labour came in, they kind of decided exactly what it was going to look like and what shape it was going to take. So I would imagine it's actually driven by HMRC and civil servants that and to be fair, it makes perfect sense. They've clearly got to do something to try and enable themselves. They have methods now that they can try and recoup funds, but obviously by doing this, it makes it incredibly straightforward for them in law to be able to go straight to the party that they think probably they're going to have the best chance of getting the funds back from.
I know you may not know the answer to this, but like, what's the end goal here? Maybe there was talk years ago of them, like the government want to get rid of umbrella companies. They want everyone to be PAYE. Is that what this is, or is this something different? What's the?
No, I generally don't think so. I think possibly at a time, maybe mid-late 2010s, I think that possibly was a bit of an aim. But this might just been being in around the sector more and understanding how they think a little bit more as well. But I do generally think that they see the benefit, and to be fair, I think they've quite openly said they see the benefit of compliant payroll providers. I mean, even if we were looking at down some of the routes whereby if this was going to go to a point where they were going to abolish umbrellas, you've got circa 500 umbrella companies for HMRC to try and police, which is in theory quite manageable, right? It's not a massive amount.
Right? There's 500 umbrella companies.
Yeah, apparently so. According to I would have thought it a bit more, but
yeah, I would as well. Yeah,
it's about 500. But yeah, so a relatively manageable amount. If you abolish that, then all of a sudden you're going from that 500 to 30,000 plus recruitment agencies. So yeah, I mean, if I was them, I think it's much easier if we get that right. We can kind of manage that as opposed to leveling it all up, and that would have created an absolute nightmare from a software point of view. Obviously, a lot of recruitment agencies aren't set up and don't want to run payroll as well. Yeah, so I think the end goal, I think ultimately is as simple as they want to be able to recoup the money whereby something's gone amiss, and I don't think it's any more sinister or anything than that from their point of view, which I guess, look, that's their job, isn't it, to collect the taxes that are due to revenue,
Yeah, absolutely.
and it's just giving them the best option and probably the easiest option. Like I say, there is legislation in place now whereby they can do this and go, but it's so difficult, and then case law doesn't make it easy. There's kind of the whole Kittle principle, and then known and should have known, all this stuff as well. This just creates a very black and white. Were you engaging with that umbrella company? Yes. Have they not paid stuff? Yes. Well, now you owe it, and here's the bill, I guess.
What's the practicalities of this what does it mean in practice, I suppose, for a recruiter at the coalface and also a business owner? Because I think when I was a recruiter, I would have just buried my head in the sand with this and I'm not saying that people should do that by any stretch, but I probably would have buried my head in the sand. I think actually recruiters need to sit up and take notice and realise what does this mean in practice for them. So for the recruiters listening, but then for the business owners, what does it mean in practice for both of those groups?
I guess it's a little bit like the umbrella. I mean, we talk here that 5, 6, 7, 8, 9% of umbrella companies are good businesses that want to do things the right way. It's only a small percentage that obviously don't. It's probably similar with recruitment. A lot of these, and this might be maybe a little bit touch controversial, but a lot of these schemes are driven by recruiters in a way because they want to find a gap in the market or whatever it might be. But the vast majority now will be doing things well, and they'll be doing things, and they'll not have a huge shift to make. But I guess for some that are, and again, there will definitely be some that know that they're using stuff that they shouldn't be using, so they're clearly going to have a change to make. But yeah, probably the ones that appeal, maybe the wrong word, but I can't think of different ones who go with that appeal would be the ones who perhaps are kind of in the middle, who maybe don't know, or they think, it doesn't really matter to me. Well, actually, it probably is going to matter to you, and burying the head in the sand is probably not a good course of action, because if you're not really,
is, to be fair,
if you're not really on top of this, and the umbrellas have got to be super transparent, super upfront with our clients, and obviously the clients need to take note of that, and if the umbrella company is not doing that, then they need to be starting to ask questions. And I think the days of certainly like the brown envelopes and stuff like that, or whatever it might be, tickets here and there, and they might be nice, but ultimately they're nice. What's going to pay your mortgage and support your family, your kids is ultimately your business. And I think as a recruitment owner, then you need to be making steps to make sure that you're not taking undue risk or putting your business at undue risk by perhaps not being as thorough as you could be.
So let's just touch on that then. So there's the risk part, the other end of being like watertight. What does that look like? So if I own a recruitment business, what should I be doing right now? I
mean, there's some very simple steps. Obviously, accreditations go quite a long way. So a lot of people will be familiar with FCSA, and SafeRec is one that I personally would recommend. FCSA do a brilliant job, and they make sure that a lot of boxes are ticked. And to be fair, they're getting more into the point as well now of looking at kind of the financial elements and making sure that payroll companies are submitting taxes correctly and, more importantly, paying them. SafeRec do all of that as well. So
these guys go in and they audit the umbrella company, the payroll companies, and make sure they're compliant and doing all the right things, right? Yeah.
And again, to be fair, SafeRec and FCSA both have a system whereby every single payslip that, for example, we're members of both and certified members of both of those accreditations. So every single payment that we make is independently audited by SafeRec, and that's to make sure that the tax deductions are correct and they're accurate. So we cannot hide anything. So for the 7,000 people a week that we're paying, every single one of those pay slips is independently verified by AI software that we have no control over, which is not a problem for us. We were one of the, and I don't think I'm inaccurate in saying this, certainly one of the bigger payroll companies, the first one really to kind of go onto SafeRec 18 months or so ago. And there's been a real kind of, I guess, trail of people doing the same now, just because it enables us to go to recruitment agencies every single month. They're going to get a report that shows every single worker that's been paid by us via their agency, that first off, that their tax has been correctly calculated and deducted, but possibly more importantly, they will then also auditors every month to make sure that if we're declaring £6.5 million in pay as you earn for a period, every single penny of that has been paid to HMRC. So again, if we're going from a risk point of view, if you're not doing that, your risk is quite high. Straight away now, if you're working with a company like ourselves, your risk has gone down a chunk because you know that stuff's been correctly calculated and it's been paid across. But there's still more that people can do. You know, I would probably encourage people to be, again, if they're working with us, they're going to get reports every month that everything is being paid over. We're going to declare it down to things like pensions and stuff like that as well. So probably going a little bit further than some of the accreditations too.
And what should I look for? Like if I own a recruitment business, so I look for, right, your safe rec, your FCSA, cool, that checks out. What am I looking for in this? Because I suppose the danger, you could send me that report and I don't know what any of this means. Like, what's the bits that I need to be aware of?
Well, to be fair, the report, they're incredibly easy to digest. So it is as simple as a pie chart, and if it's 100% green, it's going to look green, right, good. and if there's red, bad. If there's amber, then there might be a few little questions to be had within there. So that immediately, I guess, breaks down if there is any areas that need to be investigated further. But even looking down further and speak with payroll partners and looking at things like, you know, potentially even management accounts, and making sure that they're financially liquid, and you know, ultimately again, agencies are likely going to be paying big chunks of money over on a Thursday, Friday, whenever it might be, and they need to have the full confidence that money is going to go where it's intended to go, right? So making sure that they're getting reports. That I know that our software providers as well, for example, they're building reporting into our system, whereby it will break down the liability by every single agency that we're dealing with. So again, rather than having this, because it can probably look quite over-facing, because you're looking at tens of millions of pounds every single week, but actually we can break it down into client by client. And I think just getting as much information as you can, as long as it's good, concise information. And again, I know that Simon mentioned it when he was on, and he's absolutely right. There is no way to completely safeguard yourself from this. There isn't. The legislation makes it incredibly black and white. If there's tax to be owed, then the agency owes it, and or other partners. So there is nothing that, and anybody who says that there is not being accurate. But yeah, so the main thing you can do is make sure you're speaking, and potentially with end clients as well. I think educating end clients is important, because sometimes they'll drive certain things because they might not see, I guess, the risk that sits within the supply chain too. But getting that information, making sure it's on time, making sure it's accurate, and validating it as much as you possibly can do. They're definitely the best and the easiest course of actions to take.
There was someone else that came on the podcast actually before this was all like finalised, and he suggested that as like his business he was saying like, if your business pays lots of people through umbrella companies, I think you should be hedging your bets and using 5 different umbrellas rather than one, because then if one does do something wrong, you've not. I don't know, like from your side, are you going to go, no, just use us?
Just use Omnia, just use one. No, look, it's a good point, and I guess I don't think there's a right or wrong answer for that. It's probably going to be a personal feel from agency to agency. Clearly, the benefit of using a few is you are spreading that risk a little bit. The benefit of using maybe 1 or 2 real trusted partners is it's easier to probably track that and manage that process. So I think there's pros and cons to each, and I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I do think that, if I had an agency, particularly in certain sectors where still to this day probably the choice for umbrella companies is very candidate led, I think I'd certainly advise against that, because it just would make it so difficult to even begin to kind of police what payroll company is and who is in your supply chain at that point. And similarly from a consultant point of view, I think you mentioned at the start, what's it look like for a recruitment business owner probably looks very different to consultant, because we've all been consultants. realistically their care in a way is not for that. It's, you know, they want to do their job and make the placements and do what they're paid to do. But yeah, really, I think it's important to have structures in place, certainly for the agencies where that might happen, whereby they can police that and make sure that they're protecting themselves.
And I think that is a challenge, and I think that's where it is very different for what the recruiter cares about and what the agency owner cares about. Like I ran an education business, and we had like here's our 5 umbrellas we'll use, and then a consultant would say, I've just registered this amazing candidate, I've got them an interview already, it's definitely a placement, it's worth 15 grand of temp revenue, but they're with XYZ payroll on the Isle of Man.
Yeah.
And you're like, then you become the bad guy, don't you? Of like, no, we absolutely can't use them. Now that's an extreme, but I suppose if they've got one that's not one of your 2 chosen, it just creates a bit of friction, I suppose, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I would be surprised if, I mean, it might not happen kind of first or second week in April, but I'd be really surprised if those kind of things survive the test of time with this.
Yeah.
People aren't going to be looking at those schemes anymore. And to be fair, I think even contractors and stuff as well, there's been so many different scenarios now and bits played out in various different media platforms whereby, you know, and look, it's quite obvious if you're getting offered 90-95% take home pay, that something's amiss, right? And it might be nice week to week or month to month, but you know, as well, HMRC are getting better and better at finding these things and going after them, so it's literally a matter of time. So it will definitely still be a thing, I think, but I would imagine it's going to decrease massively over time, and I think the market will gravitate to a much smaller number of umbrella companies anyway. Just
looping back to something you were talking about a second ago, with having the assurance that you'll have the right accreditation, that the reporting's correct, like looking at management accounts. If, again, like hypothetically, if I'm a recruitment business owner and I have maybe got 6 or 7 umbrella partners that we use, and I think, do you know what, now's probably the right time to get that down to 2 that we really trust, what's the sort of questions I should be asking those businesses, or what's the conversation that we should be having with our umbrella partners?
I think it probably does centre a lot around that. I mean, there's only so many things we can really look at. Are you paying people correctly? Are you paying that over to HMRC? Are you a sustainable business? There's not a whole load else outside of that in terms of mitigating that risk, and then the rest of it will come down to I guess things like it always has done in terms of the personal relationships that people will have. I think they'll become slightly less important because they probably have been arguably the main driver in our sector for a long time, so I think they'll still be important, but I don't see that agencies will prioritise that over accreditations, paying HMRC and financial stability, because, you know, you'd be a bit daft to be to do it. So I think there'll be a bit of a shift there, but yeah, I mean, really, like Martin mentioned, it's making sure you've got the information. You can't make it go away. You can't pretend that it's not there. But what you can do is put in practical, and like I say, it's not looking through a million pieces of data. It's probably looking through 3 to 6 decent data points every single week or month, however often that the agency chooses to do it, and that might vary on size. Might vary on how much they deal with an umbrella company, because you're still going to have bits, and we'll still have clients where we might only have 3 or 4, and we'll have some where we have hundreds and hundreds of temps with, so naturally there's going to be more communication with the bigger ones. And I think it's getting a sensible process in place, and we certainly have partners as well that we can introduce people to who kind of go in independent from Omnia, and they'll look at the whole supply chain, and they're great at kind of finding any holes within it, and almost kind of worst case scenario, which is probably what you want in this situation. So a bit like you get the kind of cyber things, don't you, where they'll come in and they'll attack you, attack all your systems, and you think it's scary, but actually you kind of probably really need to know it these day and age. So we've got partners that will look at stuff like that, and they'll look at flaws and holes in the supply chain. But to be fair, I think that the sector's got a lot better with understanding payroll companies as a generalisation over even the past 18 months or so. So I think a lot of agencies are probably already well on the way It's just making sure really that they stay on top of it, and that absolutely includes us. I'm not saying that we or any of our competitors are immune to that. It's going to be a constant case of proving, I guess, that people should be doing business with us, and the second that you can't prove that, then it's probably going to make it very, very difficult to keep those relationships.
What's the ramifications of like getting it wrong, of falling foul of the legislation? Is it fines? Is it going to prison? Like what's the what happens?
I'm not sure prison is on the cards, but I mean, look, unless you
I suppose it depends on the extent, doesn't it?
Yeah, unless they can be proven, I guess, to have been doing something knowingly. But yeah, I mean, ramifications are the fines will be significant, and there's probably not many businesses that and bear in mind again that HMRC you could be doing something today, you could carry on doing it for the next 6 years, and HMRC come at that point, you've then potentially got 6 years worth of liability. That's probably a bit of an extreme example, but it gets the point, and you're going to get a bill for probably millions and millions of pounds, and I'm not sure of many businesses. Obviously some would be able to do that, but many are probably not going to be able to do
the
that.
Average recruitment business in the UK couldn't deal with a 3 million quid fine from HMRC, I wouldn't have thought.
And if we take most kind of medium-sized businesses, real recruitment businesses, directors are likely going to have some form of PGs on properties and stuff like that within that business. Like HMRC will come after a lot. So the ramifications, and I don't think I'm kind of being dramatic here, are if it's your business, you will probably have it all wiped out, everything that you've built up over whatever period of time if you do get it wrong. And I guess the motivation to get it right, I would imagine, is that. There's clearly reputational elements as well, even if you can afford the the penalties or the kind of reallocation of taxes. I'd imagine that HMRC will make examples of people that if they do find it and if it does exist. Reputationally, it's not going to be ideal for people either.
You said something earlier, Sean, about talking to clients about this. I was having this conversation with a group of recruiters this week. I think there's, with this and the Employment Rights Bill as well, the big changes we're seeing, I think there's an opportunity to go and have consultative conversations and almost use this as a BD tool for a short period of time whilst it's kind of hot off the press. What are those conversations like from your side? What advice would you say to a recruiter to how should they be structuring that conversation?
I think end clients, I mentioned I think recruiters have got much better in terms of understanding payroll companies. I think end clients absolutely have, arguably more so in the last kind of probably 3 to 5 years. I don't think they ever. I
think they were in the dark for a long time, not really knowing what's happening. They just paid the invoice, right?
Yeah, and they didn't. Again, I've kind of looped back to the off payroll. That probably set some wheels in motion with some people in terms of actually, do we need to look at our supply chain a little bit further? And obviously in that situation they did. And I think it's probably still snowballing from there a little bit. But the sell, I think, is pretty straightforward. You can be seen to be proactive and be on the front foot with, well, actually, yes, there's this piece of legislation, yes, you're potential. However, we've got ABC, this is our supply chain, this is how they're audited, this is how we're going to monitor them, this is how we're going to police it. We'll provide these bits of information to you weekly, monthly, again, probably depending on the volume. And why I don't see why end client, I mean, it's the same as what we're doing with agencies, and then effectively they can roll up the same to their clients. So I don't see why an end client wouldn't be open, receptive. That's probably finding the right person within that end client. But a lot of these companies are probably going to be a size where they've got procurement or compliance divisions and departments within that. And again, if it having in a sector where you're looking for sometimes the smallest margin over a competitor, then that can be your point of difference, because I bet good money that not everybody will do it, and probably not a majority will do it.
I think it's better to be on the front foot with that, especially if it's, like you said, the point of contact is procurement. I'd rather be the recruiter that reaches out and says, hey, this is coming in, I'd love to come and have a meeting and just show you what measures we've put in place to make sure that we're fully compliant and that you're secure and safe, rather than waiting for them to go, we need this document. I think the challenge for most recruiters will be fear of not saying the right thing.
Yeah.
of going, do you know what, I'm not an expert in this, and then being worried to try and have that conversation? Is there, like, how do you help those people?
Yeah, and I think this is a good thing certainly for us, because I think it gives us the opportunity to work more closely. And again, this has been happening over a period of time, to work more closely with our clients. And I think every piece of legislation comes, it becomes less transactional. I think in the past it might have just been guys pay kind of done. Is where I think that is definitely changing, and certainly Omnia, we've got a great sales team who are always more than happy to meet with end clients, speak with end clients, and kind of, I guess, support the recruiter, because like I say, as much as we're not recruiters, we're payroll people. Recruiters aren't payroll people either, but there's absolutely no reason why we can't work together, and I think that's definitely one of the benefits. It enables us to form much stronger relationships. And it's definitely become less transactional over time, I think, and certainly agencies that want to get this right, and we've had so many through the back end of last year and before that, but they're wanting to know more information, and they're wanting to kind of educate themselves on it. We're running a seminar in London next Thursday, and we've already got fantastic kind of attendance and stuff for that. So there's definitely people who are engaging in this, probably more so, I would say, than any legislation change that I've seen, but I guess that's probably not really much of a surprise, just because this is probably by some distance the biggest one, certainly in my time.
Yeah, it feels like there's an opportunity, and it'll only be there like for a really short period of time to do that kind of stuff there, where I think if I was running a sizable recruitment agency, of saying to you or whoever my umbrella partner is, can I ask a favour, could you host a round table for 15 of our top clients just to talk about this? And I think then you've got the reason to have a conversation with that client. As a recruiter, I'd like to invite you along to this event. They get all of that. I feel safe and secure that we've got the correct process, but it's also, there's a business development kind of angle to that as well.
It's obviously I think like change, where there's change is opportunity or whatever. It's exactly that situation. And I'd imagine we obviously want to kind of get on the front foot with it from our point of view, and the stuff that we're doing, so like this, and then as I mentioned, the seminar next week, and some of the other stuff that we're doing too. And I'd imagine that there's exactly the same opportunity for recruiters to kind of maximise the opportunity with it as well.
Last question for me, and it's something slightly different away from like the payroll stuff, but I'd be intrigued to get your thoughts. You're obviously, you speak to loads of recruiters, you speak to tons of business owners, you're around the industry all day, every day. It's a question I ask everyone that comes onto the podcast. Be keen to get your thoughts. What do you think, like we're recording this at the beginning of January in 2026, what do you think this year holds for the recruitment industry?
I think it is probably quite legislation heavy, isn't it? Because we've also got this coming in, and then the employment rights bill. So I don't recall a bigger shake-up, certainly when you add those two together. Certainly in my working time, really. So I mean, that's not going to affect everybody. There's been loads of recruiters that go, doesn't affect me. But I think it will dominate, and I think it will, like we're just chatting about, it will give people who get it right the opportunity to kind of stand out and look a little bit different and more organised and more like they've got their kind of act together, so they're protecting that supply chain. Outside that, I still think it's so hard to tell. Like, it's a bit weird, really, because there's so much negativity across everything, really, in society in ways, isn't there? From job market and stuff. But we actually saw that it was really, really busy last year. So, and obviously the majority of our clients are in and around recruitment. So clearly the guys who are getting it right are doing very, very well. But I still think it's definitely uncertain from, in terms of, is it going to be busy, steady? What's the certain politicians or whatever going to change next that might kind of move stuff around again. But I would imagine that perhaps some not so sexy stuff's probably going to dominate, and it'll be a bit legislation heavy, and probably people having to spend maybe more money than they want to in getting that right.
Certainly the first half of the year, I think. Absolutely.
And then you start getting into obviously the 2027 when the employment's right, which will probably be a bit of a headache, if being honest, for a lot of recruiters and stuff that I mean, let's be honest, you don't want to deal with it. You just want to get on and place people,
do deals,
and crack on that way. But I think it probably is going to be a bit of a time whereby people have to spend a little bit more time than they want to dealing with some of those bits.
Okay, so if anyone's listening and they love the sound of everything you said, and think we've got a load of temps that we need to find an umbrella partner, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, so obviously website omniaoutsourcing.com, LinkedIn. Obviously, I'm sure there'll be links and everything that we can get in touch.
Yeah, absolutely.
There.
We'll have all the links to you and the business.
Let's say we're hosting a seminar next Thursday at Alliant Law in London. And again, people will be able to find that dead easy. It's all over our LinkedIn at the moment. Unfortunately, a bit more talking about this kind of stuff. But we have and to be fair, it's probably relevant. So we have a top tax barrister who's going to be speaking at that as well. And the reason for that is because I think you mentioned at the start that what if stuff goes retrospective, then obviously, unfortunately, the kind of lawyer is something that you don't need until you need one, really. Yeah. But he's a really good guy to know, and he'll break it down in all the right lingo that I probably don't. So yeah, we've got a great event there, and there's networking drinks after that. I can't remember where they are, but again, we'll make sure it's all in the comments. But that's hopefully a great opportunity just for like-minded people in recruitment who want to kind of meet other people and chat around what they're going to be looking to do. But yeah, we'll be pretty heavy, I think, on social media. We've got, let's say, a great sales team, and they're all dead easy to find on LinkedIn, and they'll always more than happy to have a chat, I'm sure.
Sean, thanks so much for your time today. It's been really helpful.
No worries. Thanks for having me on.
Cheers.